In time, your heart will open minds, the story will be told, and victory is in a simple soul. Hey everyone, welcome to Princessa Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Death Battle, Ruby Rose versus Maka Albarn. So, this is not a donation reward. I'm going to start right off with that, but it is the herald of some donation rewards. So, as you may know, we had been doing a series for this YouTube reactions every other week where we would get to Epic the Musical. Um, and so I have a bunch of reactions requested for a few death battles. I think there's like four of them, I think. And so I thought, like, we could do this. We could have it so that every other week or so we could do another death battle. And then this came out. And this wasn't requested, but I felt like I needed to react to this. And so I felt like this was a good way to kind of herald in the incoming actual requests for death battle reactions. Now, I've seen a lot of Death Battle. I've seen most of Death Battle, but there are a few that I just haven't seen. And so some of those have already been requested, like I said, and this is the brand new one. This is based off of two properties that I have a very special place in my heart for. Maka Albarn is a character from the anime Soul Eater, the sister series to Fire Force, both of which take place within the same universe. Soul Eater is actually a sequel to Fire Force, or I guess technically since it came first, Fire Force is a prequel to Soul Eater. And you even see the moon from Soul Eater in Fire Force directly. Soul Eater is a series about a bunch of students who are nicknamed Meisters working with a bunch of other students who are nicknamed Weapons because they can transform into weapons in order to fight the Kishin, these demons that, basically eat people's hearts and shit. They work directly under the Grim Reaper at Deathmeister Academy in Nevada. I am not fucking kidding you, it takes place in Nevada. And Maka Albarn is our main character. She is a Deathmeister student who works directly with her partner, Soul Eater Evans. Soul is a weapon who can turn into a death scythe. It is a very powerful weapon, and Soul is a bit jokey, a bit goofy, but takes fights very seriously. He loves to fight. He's a very good partner for Maka as well. They work really well off of each other. Maka tends to be very serious, very like by the books and everything, but she does have her goofy side as well. She also has a very caring side, as she shows with Krona. On the other hand, for this death battle, we have Ruby Rose, the lead protagonist of the series Ruby, which was originally created by Rooster Teeth, but is now in the hands of Viz Media. Ruby is a series about a group of characters who start off as students at Beacon Academy, a student that trains huntsmen and huntresses, warriors who are tasked with fighting the creatures of Grimm, which are basically soulless monsters, as well as any kind of like other human or faunus enemies out there. The faunus, just for reference, are humans with animal features. That's all they are. And so our characters such as Ruby, Yang, Blake, Weiss, you have Jean, Nora, Ren, Pyrrha, and so many others start this journey at the school, and it just escalates from there. And in my opinion, every season is better than the last. Even if Volume 8 is excessively hard to get through, it is still really good. So far, there are 9 volumes, 9 seasons. With the season 10 pretty much confirmed, it's still on the way because Viz has had to have a lot to get prepared for it once they've acquired it. So that being said, Ruby is a very goofy character at the start. She's very, weapon crazy. She loves different weapons, especially hers, which is Crescent Rose, a giant mechanical scythe. There's the comparison with Maka. That is also a far range, not high range, a far range, high impact sniper rifle. So that's pretty cool. The rule of Ruby is that everything is also a gun. um, and so not only does she have the scythe aspect, but it also works as a rifle, and that adds another layer to her combat style. Ruby is also a planner. Despite her goofy, happy-go-lucky, carefree attitude at first, she is actually fairly good at forming strategies and plans, especially in the middle of combat. You wouldn't think it, like naturally looking at her, but she is. And as the series progresses, she actually becomes a lot more serious and a lot more, down to earth, but still has her moments of, goofiness and silliness here and there. But due to everything happening in the series, she basically has to grow up really fast. Ruby is also younger than all of her fellow huntsmen and huntresses because she gets boosted up a couple of grades to go to Beacon Academy. She is 15 at the start of the series and 17 going on 18 at the current point. Her classmates are all 2 years older than her. So they start the series at 17 and are currently 19 going on 20. So just as a reference point for you, except for maybe a couple, there are like a couple of characters, a couple students you meet that are upperclassmen already, such as Velvet Scarlatina and Coco Adele, who are part of Team Coffee, who are second years, I believe. So they would be like 18 to 19 at the start of the series. And then we have obviously teachers and other characters you meet along the way. And it's just a really fascinating series that delves a lot into politics, socioeconomics, social statuses in general, morality and ethicality, as well as a lot of other huge topics. Soul Eater is a series that I grew up watching pretty much every year for around Halloween time. It was a series that was like a really big deal to me growing up, and was also like one of, if not my first ever AMV that I created, which I actually recreated. I believe it was last year, wasn't it? As a Halloween special AMV I made. I recreated it to the song Bat Country, originally by Avenged Sevenfold. I believe it was last year. It might have been 2023, but I think it was last year. But yeah, I actually recreated it, updated to be better on this channel. So you can go and look up the Soul Eater AMV on this channel and you should be able to find it. But yeah, for a long time, for many years, I watched it like yearly. And it's, even though I don't remember every single detail, it's still got a very special place in my heart. It doesn't age entirely well. There are issues with it, but let's be honest, some of those issues carried on to Fire Force. And while not perfect, and definitely while the ending doesn't like stay true to the manga because, the series was coming out while the manga was still going, it's still like I think it's good. I think people like tend to be a little ridiculous when it comes to the ending. I think it's still good. And I love the characters. It was also, I think, one of my first experiences with an actual queer character in anime. Because the character Krona is non-binary. They are canonically non-binary. And I think that's just really cool, you know? So yeah, it holds a special place in my heart. And RWBY has become one of my favorite shows of all time. It's that good. From its character and world building to its just fantastic action, its storytelling, just the amazing design work, everything about it is like peak. It is genuinely one of my favorite shows of all time. Now, in terms of this death battle, honestly, RWBY's gonna get destroyed, right? Like, RWBY is a warrior who has the silver eyes, but the silver eyes won't do shit to Maka. Because the silver eyes only work on the Grim. So the silver eyes are just completely out. So what RWBY has to rely on is her scythe and gun work and her strategy. And I think she is more strategic than Maka, but Maka is also basically superpowered. And with Soul at her side, because they fight in tandem, you really can't have Maka without Soul. It's like you just don't really have a chance against her comparatively. There's also, if we bring in the black blood, because Maka does get infected with the black blood at one point, if we do account for that, that'll also create this state, we'll say, that I feel would be hard for RWBY to properly handle. I don't think RWBY would understand what to do against an opponent fighting like that. Because, I think the closest in RWBY to a character who fights similarly to someone using the Black Blood, or at least Maka when she used the Black Blood, would be Tyrion, but it's not quite the same. And honestly, RWBY was never able to really defeat Tyrion. So, she needed, her Uncle Crow's help, and, in the end, they just drove him away. The best they were able to do was cut off his tail, but, he survived. He wasn't defeated. So, yeah. I'm very excited, nonetheless, to see this death battle. And I'm definitely going to be paying attention to, everything they say about it. And hell, maybe my opinion will change after I hear the breakdown. I don't know. But I'm also excited to hear and see the actual battle itself, because they usually do such a great job at that. And I wonder what kind of animation style they're going to use for this. I wonder what kind of music they're going to use. We'll have to see. But let us get into this and find out, I guess. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I looked up the credits on the actual YouTube video here. RWBY was voiced by Lindsay Jones, who is the actual voice of RWBY in the series. But Maka and Soul were not voiced by their original VAs, which I could tell. I wasn't 100% sure, so I didn't really want to say much, but in the original show, Maka, in the dub, mind you, is voiced by Laura Bailey, who you might know as, Lust from Full Metal Alchemist, Abby from The Last of Us, and so much more. Soul Eater Evans, meanwhile, is voiced by Micah Solisad, who is also Yuri Plesetsky in Yuri on Ice. And I've actually met him. Fun fact for you. I met him at Youmacon one year. But in this, Maka was voiced by Ginger Sue, while Soul was voiced by John Van Doren. I don't offhand know either of them. But I was correct with the score. The battle score, which was called Death in Bloom, was, while composed and performed by Brandon Yates, was also performed by Casey Lee Williams and Mireille Schultz. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. But yeah, Casey is the voice of Ruby's music. So I did catch that. I was able to recognize her very, very well. And as another quick note, this does complete the Team Ruby Death Battle quadrilogy. Because back in 2015, we had Yang Xiaolong, Ruby's sister, taking on Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII. In 2019, we had Weiss, my favorite of Team Ruby, taking on Mitsuru, who I believe was from one of the Persona games, I want to say. We in 2021 we had Blake Belladonna taking on Mikasa Ackerman from Attack on Titan, and now we have Ruby versus Maka. So yeah, all of Team Ruby have now been in a death battle. And so I think that's also just a really cool thing to note. But let's talk about this. So this result was super obvious. Like, as much as I prefer Ruby as a series, as much as I prefer Ruby Rose as a character, no. Ruby never stood a chance here. The issue is that, like, Maka is way too powerful. And I mentioned this in the reaction. I want to mention it again here. I do feel like they were wrong about what they said about the Silver Eyes. Like, there's all these people who constantly bitch about Death Battle, like, oh, but this wouldn't be this, or this. Especially when it comes to the Goku versus Superman shit, which, is stupid, but I'm not going to get into that here. The point is, most of the time, I see Death Battle as like, yeah, they're well researched, they're going to have more knowledge about this than you, and I would say they're as accurate as can really be. Just because the result doesn't turn out like you would want it to doesn't mean it's wrong. But I will note when there is something that feels a little off to me, and this one is one of those. Just specifically this one thing though. Everything else in this death battle was fine. They wanted to try and apply the Silver Eyes to another world's power system and it's what, like, the idea of it was. But the problem is, Silver Eyes specifically are said to only work on the Grimm. Very specifically. There's one exception we see in the series, in Ruby's actual series, but the problem is it's not an exception. Because Ruby's Silver Eyes are shown to also affect the character of Cinder. But the reason for this is because Cinder has a Grimm arm. So, yeah. And it's just, you might try to bring up the idea of like, oh, but then how, when the first time Ruby used her Silver Eyes, did Cinder like end up losing an eye, losing her arm, her original arm? How was she lost her voice? How was she so fucked up from that? It's like, do you really think it was the Silver Eyes that did it? Because I definitely don't. And meanwhile, we don't technically have the information. Cinder does blame Ruby, but I don't think it was actually the Silver Eyes that caused any of that. Because that would directly go against what we're literally told, especially by another character who is, a master of the Silver Eyes, who had trained in them and, just has all of that knowledge. It is true what they said. The Silver Eyes are a manifestation of light passed down from the God of Light. That is true. But they are not, like, specifically combatants towards dark forces. They are combatants towards the manifestations of the pools of Grimm, which are the Grimm. Salem would be another, like, example of that, because Salem was specifically dipped into the pools of Grimm, we'll say, for lack of a better word, I guess. Um, and her current form is created from that. So Salem would count as well, because she basically equivalates to being a Grimm. Is equivalates a word? She's equivalent to being a Grimm. Um, but this would not work on another world's kind of power system like Black Blood in this case. It's not just any force of evil or darkness. That's not how it works. It specifically has to be, like, created basically from the powers of the God of Darkness, the God of Light's younger brother. So it's like it just would not work on that. It would not even, like, slow Maka down. And again, I'm saying this as someone who vastly prefers Ruby. I'm saying this, I'm specifically mentioning this as something that would make the fight even more one-sided for Maka. But it's true. Ruby would absolutely stand no chance here. But though I do agree that the only thing, I do agree with what they said, the only thing that Ruby really has over Maka is the skill. Because she has had a lot more experience, and, as was made clear, she does it all on her own. Maka and Soul have to specifically work together in resonance to be able to have that mastery, which is not always easy for them. They do have a good connection. They do, by the end, work in pure resonance. But especially, like, early on, they just don't have that as well. And mind you, if you're accounting for this being the best of the best, then they do have that, but Ruby still has more experience than they do. That's just unquestionable. The speed being kind of tied based on their feats and everything, I think is fair enough. It's close enough to where it can be. Um, speed is one of Ruby's entire things, but Maka has shown that kind of speed as well, so I think that's fair. But overall, Maka winning is still, it just basically comes down to the powers. Ruby has absolutely nothing in her arsenal to stop Maka's powers whatsoever. Once Maka and Soul work together, and especially with the stuff they can do to Ruby's soul and her aura, it's like she has no chance. She's fucked. This is a battle that was done because, of their similarities and everything, but it is entirely one-sided. It's not a close fight. It's not one of those that, could kind of go either way. No, this is entirely one-sided. And so, yeah, I really had no doubt about where this was going. But I do like that they got Lindsay Jones back. That is really cool. And I do really like that they were able to get Casey for the music. Even though they weren't able to get the voices and all for Soul and Maka, I still think that the voices they got did a good job. And the animation on the battle was really cool. I really liked it. Yeah, no other real issues here. I think it turned out exactly as it was always going to. I think it was a completely fair decision to have Ruby lose. And not that it was really much of a decision, but yeah. Not much of anything else to say on that. Based on all the evidence we had, it turned out exactly like it was going to. So, tell me your thoughts, though, down below. What do you think of Ruby? What do you think of Soul Eater? Let me know your thoughts on both of these shows. Let me know your thoughts on the characters and on their power systems. And do you agree with the decision that it came to? Let me know your thoughts down below. For now, though, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, we will be getting to the actual Death Battle requests. We're going to do it like every other week like we did with Epic the Musical, so the next one's not going to be next week, it's going to be 2 weeks from now. But that all being said, thank you once again so much. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.